Hello kids, I'm going to tell you a story about a showdown. Do you know what a showdown is? In my little pocket dictionary, it says a showdown is a final confrontation. So the end to an argument, maybe not peaceful, maybe involving a fight. Here's a picture of one sort of showdown that you might have seen in the movies. Great picture, isn't it? It's a Western cowboy gunfight. Two gunslingers facing it off. Now the showdown I'm going to tell you about was different. It took place up on a mountain. There were a lot more people and it took all day. There was noise, there was fire, there was bloodshed. It really happened. You can read about it in the Bible, in 1 Kings chapter 18. And it was about something very, very important. There was the prophet Elijah, a mighty man of God. There were the prophets of Baal, all 450 of them, with their swords and their spears. There was Ahab, the king of Israel, on his throne with his guards. And behind the king, there were rows and rows of the people of Israel, hundreds upon hundreds of them, watching and waiting. Now the people of Israel were turning from the Lord to worship Baal, but King Ahab was doing nothing to stop it. Elijah went up to the people and said, "How much longer will it take you to make up your minds? If the Lord is God, worship him. But if Baal is God, then worship him." But the people didn't say a word. Then Elijah said, "I am the only one left of the prophets of the Lord. But there are 450 prophets of Baal. Bring 2 bulls. Let the prophets of Baal take one. Let them kill it and cut it into pieces and prepare it for sacrifice. Put it on the wood, but don't light the fire. I will do the same with the other bull. Then let the prophets of Baal pray to their God, and I will pray to the Lord. And the one who answers by fire, then he is God." The people shouted their approval, so the showdown happened. Elijah turned to the prophets of Baal and said, "Well, since there are so many of you, you can have first go. Take your bull, kill it, cut it up and prepare it, put it on the wood, but don't light the fire." They took the bull that was brought to them and laid it on the altar. Then they prayed to Baal. "Answer us, Baal," they called. And they marched around and around the altar until noon. But no answer came. Then Elijah began to make fun of them. "Pray louder," he shouted. "Perhaps he can't hear you. But isn't he a god? Perhaps he's gone on a trip or had to go to the toilet. Maybe he's sleeping. Shout more loudly. You'll have to wake him up." So the prophets of Baal shouted more loudly. "Answer us, Baal," they called. They cut themselves with swords until the blood flowed, and they danced around and around the altar until the middle of the afternoon. But no answer came. Not a sound was heard. Then it was Elijah's turn. Then Elijah rebuilt the altar for the worship of the Lord. He dug a trench all around it. He placed the wood on top of the altar and laid the bull on top of the wood. Then he said, "Bring 4 jars of water and pour it over the altar and the sacrifice." And they did. Then he said, "Do it again." And they did. Then he said, "One more time." And they did. The water flowed over the animal, over the altar, and filled the trench. Then Elijah prayed. He prayed, "O Lord, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, prove now that you are the God of Israel, that I am your servant and do all this at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, that these people may know that you are the Lord their God and that you are calling them back to you." The Lord sent fire down. It burnt up the sacrifice, the wood, the altar. It scorched the earth and dried up all the water in the trench. When the people saw this, they threw themselves to the ground and shouted, "The Lord is God! The Lord alone is God!"